Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Welcome. Thank you for your prior service and your willingness to serve at the federal level. I wanted to stay on the topic of your service in California, but on a different subject, and that is a law that California has had on the books for a while, effectively banning the use of something called non-compete agreements. Non-compete agreements cover today about 20% of U.S. employees. They impact low-skilled and low-wage workers, just as they impact higher-skill and higher-wage workers, and they are inherently non-competitive. They effectively give employers a veto right over an employee's right to choose where they work. This is becoming a real area of bipartisan agreement. We have legislation modeled after California's in Congress now that's supported by a bipartisan coalition of senators. And so this is probably an issue that will be more likely regulated by the FTC than labor. The Department of Labor still has the ability to glean information about the impact of non-competes. President Biden ran on a promise to address this issue. So I wanted to ask you about what your experience is in California with a fairly rigorous restriction on non-compete agreements, and whether you'd be willing to work with the committee and with the Senate to at least make sure that the DOL provides relevant information to help us make a decision moving forward on this issue.
Yes, thank you so much, Senator. So absolutely yes to working together on this issue if I'm confirmed. I think this is one of those examples of how something that's good for workers is actually also good for employers. The ability for employers to attract and train the talent that they need. I think it's just a very important part of, again, the many areas of common ground that when we do something that protects workers, there's also a benefit to employers. So absolutely, yes to working on the issue together.
And my sense is that in California, you've found that the existing protections for intellectual property and trade secrets is sufficient in order to make sure that employees who are leaving, one firm that's highly dependent on IP doesn't take it and bring it illegally to another company. It's important for folks to remember that just because the non-compete agreement may not be available to an employer, they aren't bereft of other mechanisms to stop the illegal transfer of intellectual property. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Senator,
Great.
Yes.
The second topic that I wanted to touch on is related to this issue of unemployment, but specific to the issue of long-term unemployment. We have a workforce training agency in Connecticut called The Workplace that has been featured in national publications and national media because they have specifically attacked this issue of long-term unemployment with a program called Platform to Employment. And it recognizes the fact that for folks that have been out of the workforce for a very long time, for years in some cases, there are all sorts of ancillary effects to that individual and to that family that have to be dealt with in order to get them back into the workforce. And I think we're going to be looking at a very large population of long-term unemployed once we finally turn the corner. Is this something that you looked at specifically in a targeted way in California? Do you think it's worthwhile for the Department of Labor to think about this specific population of individuals who've been out of the workforce for a long time, who frankly right now don't even show up on our statistics, and look at programs like Platform to Employment, others that have had success in rooting people back into the workforce?
That's right. Thank you, Senator. Yes, I think that it is definitely a population that needs and deserves our attention. Again, especially coming out of the pandemic, where we have seen long periods of unemployment for individuals and, frankly, people dropping out of the labor force as a result, disproportionately women workers. And so I think that there is a tremendous need to target our workforce programs on those who face the greatest challenges, and the long-term unemployed are certainly one of those. I will also just note, I know there are innovative and effective programs in your state and other states that we ought to be building on. In California, too, we've invested in what we call high road training partnerships. They're really demand-driven partnerships between employers and employees where industry comes together, business, management, labor, community colleges and other educational institutions and community-based organizations to support people who are trying to get into the workforce and creating opportunities for high road jobs where people can actually support a family and lift themselves out of poverty. And so I think finding those innovations and figuring out how we duplicate them where appropriate is something I would love to do. And I know that there are models in your state that we could use.
It's great to hear. Platform to Employment has an 80% success rate, and some economists suggest 1 out of 3 jobs that have disappeared during the pandemic aren't coming back. So this is going to be a problem that we all have to deal with. Thank you, Madam Chair.